Watercress. Watercress, how could you be so reckless? Poppy demanded after they were certain Basil had left. She had melded the shards of glass along the floor back into a proper test tube, and they had established a sound barrier around themselves. You could have gotten yourself killed! And if I had told you, then you would have been implicated. No, I would have told the truth, so we could have had a normal life, rather than condemning Basil to a life in the shadows, Poppy said. How can you expect that he would ever become a proper mage? He is a proper mage. Watercress was offended for Basil at her insinuation. He has far surpassed Turmeric's abilities as a wizard. He could be a healing mage of a small city. No, he couldn't. Even if he is as skilled as you claim, passing sorcerers would see his phantom wings, and you know one of them would mention it. If not to him, then to someone. He'd be discovered eventually. I could have secured him a position out of the way, somewhere far from trading roads, far from travelers, somewhere where no one would know he had been born after Ether. Be realistic. I am. I've guarded him thus far. It would be possible. You've only guarded him as his master. He might want to travel the world someday too. Maybe he'll take a vacation to the skies of Wojet or the hot springs in Devor. Along the way, he could run into anyone. Why didn't you tell Citrine once you knew? Because he would have given Basil over to Panite. I got an off-putting feeling from the High King when we proclaimed Ether as a spawn. One man shouldn't have that much power. Religion and state working conjunctively are what has united our realm for the past age. To split the two wasn't your decision to make. It was, Watercress says. It was, Watercress said. Because I did. But it was reckless, Watercress, and now Basil recognizes something's wrong. I don't know how you've kept him away from the Crusade's transportation mage, but your luck will run out. Azimuth has been busy sending my letters and his reports back and forth to Citrine. He also transports any spawn we come across who want shelter to their capital's castles. The effort exhausts him. He spends his days sleeping in a tent or an Auroch cart, so I doubt he'll ever notice Basil. But if I can control either the sorcerers or Basil, then my luck will not run out. What if you aren't aware of all the pawns you're playing with? Then I might lose. Basil learning of his identity would not be the end of the world, Poppy said. I know. I will tell him someday. Perhaps you should tell him now. Speaking from my experience with Lavender, his mistrust will only grow otherwise. And if he understands what he's protecting himself against, perhaps he will take it seriously enough to follow through on your instructions on how to defend himself. I hesitated previously because I worried he might brag about it to court a paramour. He's 16! You can't have too high of expectations. When we were that age, you did whatever you could to impress me. Watercress sent her a pointed look. He wisely didn't say that he hadn't told her of his raising the Archspawn back then. I might trust his judgment better now. The Crusade has helped him move on from his previous romantic interest. If you're concerned over something like that, then I would hold off. You understand my predicament with this. The decisions I've made have been in reaction to what I've judged his nature to be. Reactions to how he's grown. I still can't believe you'd do something so arrogant and dangerous. You can't? He asked smugly. She gave him a sidelong look. No, you're right, I can. I just don't want to believe it. I don't want our life together to have been snatched away because you wanted to play high priest, grooming him for your own intentions. I intended to prevent him from becoming a political lever. I intended to show him the beauty and magnificence of this world, so he could choose whatever path he wanted, rather than forcing him into something he might have detested. I wanted to present him with options and allow him to choose his future. Are you hoping he'll bless humanity in return for your kindness, for his ability to follow his own path, rather than learn to maintain his spiritual and emotional balance from an expert? Are you insinuating that I am not an expert in something? Watercress challenged playfully. Yes, I am. You are not an expert in how an Archspawn should be raised, how he might be led down the right path and lead us all to salvation. And what gives the High Priest jurisdiction to do so? Watercress asked. When we tracked down the legendary beasts, I read every Archspawn's history. I know the minds of their mentors, teachers, and parents. I know with intimate detail what key events happened in each of their lives to make them choose the archangel or archdemon fate the way they did. I could argue that I'm a better choice than the High Priest, who only reads the religious texts texts that have been corrupted and manipulated over time to serve the political agendas of whoever holds the keys to the realm. I still do not agree with your decision. I wish you hadn't sacrificed everything to raise the Archspawn. After knowing what I know now, knowing how taking on Basil would isolate me from you, knowing it would lead to rejection from my own master, knowing how difficult it would be to constantly guard him, knowing how I would never travel or continue large-scale research, if I gave him even the slightest improvement in his quality of life over Ethers, I would do it all over again. And it will have been worth it. Basil deserves a chance at life, like the regular spawn. He deserves more than to sit in the High King's cage and dance for royals whenever they roll him out for religious ceremonies. Even the regular spawn know what they are, and I'm sure they treat Ether well. But do you actually know? Do you know what happens to a person who the entire realm believes will judge millions of souls? Perhaps their own, perhaps their children's, perhaps their parents'. Because I don't know, and I find that disconcerting. I would prefer to know than not to know. There's the real answer, of why you took in Basil. I told you many reasons why. But you can't stand not knowing something important. You want to place yourself at the apex of historical importance so that someday some student will be studying your life the way you've studied the greats before you. What do you want them to say about you? World innovator, expert manipulator, teacher of the Archspawn, master of knowledge. That wasn't my intention. I did it because it felt right. Why couldn't our lives together been enough for you? Why did you have to get yourself involved in this? Silver tears lined Poppy's eyes. It felt right, despite everything. His quiet tone grounded her anger. After a moment, she asked, "Why did Annis reject you?" "I ruined his legacy. He wanted a trail of prejudiced sorcerers to follow him, to declare his worth through time. He didn't want his training to end with me. So, when I told him I was taking on a non-sorcerer apprentice, he ceased all communications. He refused to meet Basil. His cessation of contact worked well in terms of hiding Basil's identity, but it was painful to lose him." "I'm sorry, Watercress. I'm sorry." She hugged him tightly around his middle. "I've missed you." He hugged her back and caressed the crook of her neck in their embrace. "And I you."